Good morning. Today, we're gonna give you the very basic idea about research. Ultimately, we'll define what research is. For the new researchers, for the students who are gonna interested for research job, they are invited to this video. This video will ultimately answer once again what research is. Just the very basic idea. Usually in a research paper, in a research report, there are 5 sections. The 5 sections are: number 1 is introduction, number 2 literature review, number 3 methodology, number 4 sorry, results and discussion, and finally a conclusion on the overall research report or paper. In introduction section, you will ultimately explain the research interest and the research gap. Research interest is the key to start a research. This interest must be within you. Usually, this interest grows from the previous academic readings. For the new researchers, the interest grows from the theoretical readings at schools. If you have strong theoretical knowledge on an issue, remember that you must have to have the strong theoretical knowledge on any specific issue to start the research. So if you have strong theoretical knowledge on any issue, you can choose that field as your research interest, because research is intended to develop new knowledge in the existing field or developing a new field to the existing one. So reading is the base for a good research proposal or research work. Upon developing a research idea or interest, you need to focus on previous research works related to your interested area. This rigorous focus study will help you to identify the research gap. Research gap is related to research questions or research objectives. Research questions indicate what problems you are going to solve. Research questions and research objective is the same. The style of description is different. For an example, the research question may be, what is the skill gap in the RMJ industry of Bangladesh? You can rewrite this question as, the research is undertaken to know the skill gap in the RMJ industry of Bangladesh. Ultimately, it is the statement of the problem or research problem. In introduction, you can write the brief literature as background to justify the research problem or research gap. So in introduction, you can also do some research work in addition to the section 2 about the literature review. To understand the introduction section, we can cite an example. Say, for an example, you are just graduated from the management or engineering, and you are interested to start a new research project as an initiative to pursue higher education. During your 4 or 5 year student life, you have read a lot of books. Among the previous readings, academic readings, you have got interest. Remember, you have got interest on growth analysis of the textile industry of Bangladesh. So your theoretical knowledge or research interest. Broad area of your research interest is growth analysis of the textile industry of Bangladesh. Growth analysis. This interest may lead you to develop a new research idea. You could read more details about you could read more details about the growth analysis of the textile industry of Bangladesh. After huge readings on growth analysis of the textile industry of Bangladesh, maybe you will find a gap that you can fill. The gap, say for an example, maybe influence of bank loan on the growth of the textile industry of Bangladesh. So once again, the gap, you have find that there is no previous research work on the influence of bank loan on the textile industry of Bangladesh. So your research interested area is growth analysis of the textile industry of Bangladesh. And from this interested area, you have find the gap that there is no study on the influence of bank loan on the textile industry of Bangladesh. Now you will undertake your project on the influence of bank loan on the growth industry of Bangladesh. So your research question may be, what is the impact of bank loan on the textile industry of Bangladesh? Or the objective of your research may be to know the influence of bank loan on the textile industry of Bangladesh. It is ultimately the research problem you are going to solve. In introduction section, you will also give a brief idea or structure of the total content of the paper. Say for an example, first section includes the introduction. Second section will be literature review. Third section will give a brief description of the methodology of the report or the research paper. And finally, section 5 will be the 5 or 4 will be the conclusions of the paper. So introduction section also tells about the total research paper or contents of the research paper. This is all about the brief idea of introduction. So in sum, or if we sum up that, in your introduction, you will show your interest, motivation on any job, or you will explain the research problem that you are gonna solve. And in section 2, that means in literature review, in many papers, in many reports, you will not find this section. This is not the mandatory section. However, this is very important section for every research. Once you have chosen the field of study and the tentative title of your research work, next job is to thoroughly study the tentative title related research work. Remember that literature review doesn't indicate the definitions or some theoretical knowledge. Literature review must be related with your title of the research work, or it must be related with the research gap. What are the previous related work that have been done on your interested area that you will ultimately study in this literature? Although some literature review you have done in your introduction stage to justify the research gap, at this stage you have to do more thorough study on the chosen field or area. If the field is new and literature is insufficient, you can skip a separate literature review section in your work. In that case, literature review at the introduction stage is sufficient. You do not need to write a separate section in your report. Some students think that literature review is reading theoretical issues. Do not forget that you are doing research. The existing knowledge you know. You are going to add some additional knowledge in the field. So before starting research on a topic, you have to have full theoretical knowledge on that particular field or topic. So literature review doesn't indicate to read theory, rather indicates thorough study of the previous research work on the particular topic or field that you have chosen as your research interest. To continue the previous example, if you remember that you have chosen the research field as what is the impact of bank loan on the textile industry's growth in Bangladesh. Literature review means reviewing previous research work on the impact of bank loan in this case, impact of bank loan on the textile industry's growth in Bangladesh. The related research, literature maybe we'll read more literature on the impact of bank loan on the other industries of Bangladesh, impact of bank loan on the Asian textile industry, impact of bank loan on the textile industry of America, etc., etc. Literature review doesn't indicate to read what is loan, what is bank, types of bank, types of loans, what is growth, types of growth, or any economic growth related theories. No definitions, remember. So review literature only related to your chosen title or interested area. Then after literature review, the next section comes to methodology. Methodology ultimately indicates the model, the way you are going to solve your research problem. It is the time to describe the way of solving the research problem once again. How are you going to answer the research question, or how you are going to achieve the objective of your study? So this section is related to problem statement, research question, and objective of your research. The ways of answering may be experimental. You will do some experiments and you will answer the research question. Maybe qualitative, maybe quantitative, etc., etc. At this stage, you need to design your model of solving the problem. In case of experimental research, you need to design the experimental model. For quantitative model, you need to design the model based on the qualitative and quantitative data and information. For qualitative research, you need to have the qualitative model based on qualitative data and information. For an example related to our previous research title, that is, we are interested to know the impact of bank loan on the textile industry's growth. The model can be described as given in the given here. Asset growth equals beta naught plus beta 1 equity plus beta 2 bank loan plus beta 3 trade credits and plus epsilon. This is the model that can help to answer the research question, that is, what is the impact of textile industry's growth, impact of bank loan on the textile industry's growth. Here, there are two types of variables mainly. Number one is dependent variable, asset growth of the company. It indicates the growth of the industry. And there are some independent variables: equity, bank loan, trade credits. There are three independent variables. You need to collect the information on equity. Equity means capital contributions of the owners and the profit retained in the business. Bank loan, that means borrowings from the bank. And trade credits, it indicates credits taken from the other companies, or it is usually known as accounts payable. So this model can explain your research question. What is the impact of bank loan on the textile industry's growth? You can solve this model by using statistical softwares. You know that there are many statistical softwares. All are just the computer applications of your statistics. Spaces, Stata, Views, MATLAB. These are all statistical softwares. So you can use any one of the statistical package or statistical software to solve these equations, but you need to collect information on the independent variables: equity, bank loan, trade credits. This information will help you to explain the industry's growth. You can also use different models. Say, for example, the above model can also be written as in the following figure. And this type of models usually is explained or described by structural equation modeling and explained, or these are usually solved using structural equation modeling softwares. Say, for example, PLS or Smart PLS. The issue comes from is that where we get data and what types of data we need to collect. For solution of the research problem, we can collect primary data, first-hand data. Primary data means first-hand data that have not been used by previous researchers. Or we can solve the equation or the model by using secondary data. Secondary data means data that have been used by the previous researchers, and we can use the secondary data or second-hand data. There are some more classes of data like cross-sectional data, which means data with multiple features for a single period. Time series data, data for single feature for multiple years. Data may be panel data. Panel data have both the features of cross-sectional data and time series data. So to know more about the different data and sources, you need to check some books on research methodology. So please read some books for understanding the research methodology. And the next section is about results and discussion. So we have already explained, we're just defining what research is. And up to this point, we have defined what is introduction, what is literature review, what is methodology. And finally, the most important section of the research paper is results and discussion. It is ultimately your contribution to the existing knowledge or existing field of work. This will explain your contribution That means the results of your research, what you are going to contribute. And you will explain, that means you will discuss the results. When you will discuss, you will put your justifications. Sometimes justifications help you to create a new research area. So be very careful to describe the results of your study. Solution of the problem, in other words. In introduction, you have stated the problem. Now, in results and discussion, you will show the solutions of your problem. And in methodology, you ultimately discuss how you will solve the research problem. In introduction, research problem. In methodology, how you will solve the research problem. And in results and discussion, the solutions you will explain. Say for an example, it is continuation of the previous research question, that is, what is the impact of bank loan on the textile industry's growth of in Bangladesh? So remember that we have drawn a model. It is the model that we are going to explain. We are going to explain the results there. So this model using Stata, we have got this type of results. Here, beta naught or B0 is 0.5. And equity, the impact of equity on the asset growth or the textile industry's growth is 20%. Impact of bank loan that is intended in our research is impact of bank loan on the textile industry growth in Bangladesh. It is 10%. And impact of trade credit is 10%. Total 50, 70, 80, 90%. And still there are 10% unexplained. That is usually explained in epsilon here. This epsilon is ultimately discusses the error of the model. This is how you will explain the results. To explain the issues, you need to have some statistical knowledge. So before explaining the results and before designing the models, please go through some inferential statistics, hypothesis testing, F statistics, T statistics, regression analysis, etc. Maybe we can explain the different statistical techniques in another session. But for the moment, we are just getting you the idea of what is research. So it is not the details discussion, just the definition of research. Finally, the final section is conclusion. In conclusion, you will conclude the total paper. This section is very important, remember, because many researchers do not read all the paper. They first read the introduction and then go to the conclusion to know the answer to your research question. In your introduction section, you will state the problem, and in conclusion, you will summarize the answer to the research problem or research question. So many researchers do not read all the paper. Primarily, they read introduction and then read conclusion. And if they're satisfied, then they go through the total paper, and sometimes they cite your paper in his work. Under this section, you are going to summarize the answer to the research questions in your own language. Do not copy from the results section, remember. Also, link your result with the objectives of your research. Answers to your research question, answer to your research question is very important here. Also, in your conclusions, write some recommendations based on your results or policy implications that may be important for the policy makers or industrial applications. If there is any limitations in your research work, you will also indicate the limitations here. And if there is any way to overcome the limitations by undertaking next research, please explain the next course of possible actions or future scope of research. This is ultimately what research is. In our next video or in our next session, we can discuss about the introduction in details, literature review in details, methodology in details, results and discussion and conclusions in more details. Thank you for patience hearing.